This actually happened to my eldest son, who's in grade 8. He was in the schoolyard playing. A grade 1 girl walked up to him, slapped him across the head, and said, "You are not allowed to hit girls. You cannot hit me back." Mm-hmm. I'd like to...
Well, at least she was being honest. You know, and an adult woman who would do that would probably find a way to turn herself into the victim.
Women deserve a safe space on campus. Queer people deserve a safe space on campus. Trans people deserve a safe space on campus.
How many groups exist because of that, right?
You mean enough? Why do men need a safe space on campus?
Why do men need a safe space? Because the very idea of an event where men are talking about men's issues in a non-sanctioned manner, then you have what happened at the Warren Farrell protest. I don't know if you watched the footage of that, right? But if I were one of the men who was trying to attend an event talking about male suicide and all kinds of other stuff, and I had some woman who knows she can get away with it up in my face, calling me every name in the book, screaming at me, I don't think I'd feel very safe, right? Okay? And frankly, men are the majority of victims of public sphere violence.
I'm not saying that any of those statistics or male suicide, any of that stuff exists, because it does. Men are the victims of more workplace violence, workplace like suicides, low enrollment rates. That said, that's not systematic oppression in society.
Really? I think that when a 6-year-old girl can hit another child and get away with it and never ever have to suffer retaliation because he's a boy, okay? I think that's systematic.
How?
Because if the system intervenes and punishes the boy for hitting back, right? It's systematic.
For their behaviour. But is it really hard being a man? Scotty has joined us now. Hi, Scotty. Thanks for coming in. Just give us your verdicts, in essence here. Is male superiority, is it confined to an anachronistic corner of our gender, or is it hardwired into the male brain?
I think it's much darker than that. I think it's much sinister than that. I think men in this country, and let's talk about this country, men are socialised to be a hegemonic version of masculinity. So they're told they have to be violent, that they have to dominate, that they are to be leaders. And we've created cultures that endorse that. And so we're witnessing the effects of that. And I think what's really important to say when we're looking at that short film, which is quite a light-hearted look at some horrific things that have come to light in the last couple of weeks. But this idea that somehow that these have just emerged, that these thoughts have just come out, like women have been telling us for decades this stuff's going on, and so we've got to understand that there's going to be this rage, there is going to be this anger and this backlash, that all of this conversation is about, oh, let's say sorry, oh, you know, or my daughters, or yes, it's now time to listen to women. No, women have been saying this for a long time.
Yes, they have.
It's disgraceful.
They have.
It's embarrassing, actually, that we've got like prolific Hollywood film stars who are saying it's now time that we listen to women. Actually, we need to do more than that. You know, like, it would be really easy and in their capacity to be able to sign contracts in which they see the contracts of other women that are playing alongside them and make sure they're being paid the same.
You don't see any signs of attitudes changing. Is it a generational thing to any degree at all?
I think it's far too simplistic. I think my daily experience as a big, fat, queer femme of, like, existing in this world is one of violence, of people taking photographs of me in public space, of trucks veering onto the road so people can shout out expletives at me, of having, like, every day having a series of being ridiculed. In fact, actually, I was on the phone to the non-emergency police line reporting a homophobic hate crime whilst another was taking place to me. That is how much I and other people like me have to deal with. So if we ask if this is generational, no, this is happening. This is actually happening. And what I want us to do is get beyond just saying that, oh, maybe it's just banter, or maybe this is just like what masculinity is about. We've got to start really critiquing this and start looking at it. And I guess that's what I'm trying to do with my artworks around the country, is have conversations that go beyond the echo chamber.
You do what you do with your arts. Have you got anything else by way of a solution or the beginnings of an answer to how to make things better from your point of view?
Well, that's a difficult question because, you know, like, how is me, who is, you know, to some extent, like, I am a victim of masculinity in a way because of the aggressions that I put up with on a day-to-day basis. Why is it that, like, us, why is it like queer, trans, non-binary people, why is it us who's got to come up with the theories to be eloquent enough to be able to say, this is how we disable toxic masculinity? Actually, this has got to come from within. Men have got to acknowledge their privilege, and I want them to hand over power, and also I want them to hand over some platform. I'm really up for, like, trying a matriarchy. We've done patriarchy for a long time, hasn't really worked.
OK, Michael, what do you think? Because obviously
I'm
I'm completely enlightened. I don't need to be told about this.
I think I've heard a great deal of rubbish in the last few moments. I mean, men are not trained to be dominant and violent. I was trained to obey a woman who was my leader, who was Margaret Thatcher. And in the present world, we have a female...
Tories love to do that,
we have
don't
a
they?
female queen, we have a female prime minister...
A female queen, a woman who was unelected.
We have a female First Minister of Scotland, we have a female leader of the Conservative Party in Scotland, we have a female
21%.
leader of the Labour Party in Scotland. I just don't recognise the picture you're painting at all.
You don't recognise the misogynies that we're currently experiencing in the world. I can tell you...
And what is more, if there's one thing that has been remarkable about the last 20 years, it has been the emancipation of gay people. We now have gay marriage. We've had... What? Well, we don't have gay marriage?
No, we do have
what
gay
do you say?
marriage. But
You're not saying there's been a transformation?
Yeah. I'll tell you what would be a good idea.
There hasn't been a transformation.
My daily experience.
Scotty,
Maybe the woman could talk.
Let a woman get a word. What about that?
So, you know, this isn't just confined to the movie industry. It is everywhere. I experienced it when I was a kid growing up in Watford, being groped when I was a waitress and when I was working a Saturday job in a computer store, going to the boss and then telling me to just ignore it or avoid the person. And this is about power. I think that every single organisation in the land, every public, private, every political party should be looking at, can women speak out? Who can they go to? Is there a proper process there? And I also do think that it is about women speaking out, but also men saying to some other men, this kind of behaviour isn't acceptable. And we get accused of being prudes and prim and proper if we get angry that someone said something to us. But that's because we never know where it's going to end up. It clearly... You know, my brother, many of his friends and many of my friends are not like that at all, and things are changing, but there's still far too much going on.
OK, Liz, I'm going to have to live up to every possible stereotype and stop you and talk over you and wind up the programme. That's your lot for...
Issue of transgender rights. Is it your position, Melanie, that we've gone too far in accommodating people who feel their gender identity and their biological sex don't match?
Well, I think that anyone who is in a situation of gender confusion should, merit sympathy and understanding. But I also think that we've got ourselves into a situation where there is a body of pressure behind the cause associated with transgender issues, which seeks to basically write biological sex out of the script altogether, to basically say that if I were to say I am a woman, that is somehow causing offence to somebody who is in a state of gender confusion. Now, I think that is not only absurd, and is not only sort of draconian and even totalitarian, but it is denying me my right to say what I am, which is a woman.
Do you think that is what's happening?
I don't think that is what's happening. I think what's happening, it's all about equality. It's all about recognising that some people self-identify as a different gender and they should be given the opportunity to do that. And I think it's the kind of society that we want to live in terms of looking after people's mental health and well-being, and just saying that we need to be mindful of people's circumstances and what they're going through. And I don't think that...
I agree with that. I agree with that. I think we should be mindful and we should be compassionate and considerate.
Right, so
but that's not what's happened. If you look at the proposal for the census, the proposal
census.
that people should not be required to say whether they're male or female, the proposal, the sort of consultation document says that it was thought to be irrelevant, unacceptable and intrusive to be asking about sex. But the crucial point is this: the option of adding a third choice of other, male, female, other, was considered problematic because it was thought to homogenise trans people and differentiate them from the rest of society. Now, so here you have a situation where, in my view, that's what should happen. If the census people, if people are concerned that transgender people don't find a place in the census questionnaire which simply says, are you male or female, fine, have other. But no, you can't have other, because to have other would somehow cause offence. In which case, I cannot say on the census, I can say on the census that I am a woman, but the census overall will no longer be reliable as the principal source of statistical information about men and women in the country.
And isn't that
can't be right?
Is that a problem for planning, for services going forward, if you cannot have reliable figures about who is the male and who is female, and those that identify as neither?
Absolutely, but I mean, I'm not quite sure if this is a concrete proposal. And I think it's about terminology. So as I understand it, having read it, I read it that it wasn't about, they were going to change the language of sex to gender. And so it's not that you'd be denied saying whether you're male or female, or either it would be just changing the language from sex to gender, which I agree with. I think it's important that we understand what the makeup of the country, both in terms of male, female, transgender. It's important that we understand. And I also think it's important to kind of note that ensuring that somebody has their equal rights doesn't take away from anybody else's equal rights. So equality is equality, and that's where we should come from as a base of understanding.
I mean, clearly, Melanie, as the trans community gets more awareness in the wider community, there are going to be more people, and there are more people now seeking treatment at a relatively young age. Isn't that long overdue?
Well, it may well be that there was treatment that such people require that they weren't getting, in which case I'm very glad if they're now getting it. What worries me, however, is that as far as specifically as far as children, for example, are concerned, what is often a passing phase of thinking that you're of the opposite sex, and which passes quite normally, is being medicalised. And these children are having a label hung around their neck, and inappropriate medical intervention is taking place. That's what worries me. That takes away the right of a child just to be a child.
Right. Is there too much sort of medical invasive surgery that is being offered or could be offered in future to children who are too young to be certain about whether they want to change gender?
I don't think we're anywhere sort of near that point at the moment. I think the Gender Recognition and Equality Act 2010 needs to be updated. I think that it's too simplistic to say that it's just a passing phase. And as I said, I think we have to be mindful in regards to how people feel and the journey that they're going through in terms of their sexuality, and how we talk about it, how we address those situations has to be done with care and compassion every time we have a conversation about it.
Right. So, do you think people who are uncomfortable with or sceptical about this issue, who may say it is a passing phase or there's just too much noise around transgender or gender issues in general, do you think some of that is transphobic in your mind?
I think that every time we get to a point where we're talking about somebody else's equality rights, there's an uproar. When it's about women, there's an uproar. When it's about black people, people of colour, there's an uproar. Now it's about transgender people, there's an uproar. And I really think we just need to take it, as I say, with care and compassion as we talk about these issues, as we talk about the act that's coming before Parliament, and we make sure that everyone feels comfortable talking about where they are in themselves.
Right, Melanie?
Well, the only people who won't feel comfortable are people who are likely to be called transphobic if they say they are men or women. And if they say that certain people are men or women, if somebody gives birth, it's not a pregnant person, it's a pregnant woman. That person who says it's a pregnant woman is likely to be called transphobic, and as we saw with the case of Germaine Greer, is likely to be howled off the stage. This is a weapon for a very authoritarian, very intolerant set of attitudes masquerading as compassion.
All right, we're